Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to the mufcMPB YouTube channel. By now, you should know when I'm doing an episode on this YouTube channel, I'm joined by big guests. And today is no different. From ESPN, it's Mr. Rodrigo Faez. Now, before we get into it, did I say the name okay or was it a bit off?
It was perfect, Anil. Thanks for having me. I don't know if I pronounced
Yeah,
Anil in the perfect
perfect.
way.
All good,
Okay,
all
but
good.
you're
There we
doing
go.
really well.
We're off to a great start. Right. So, firstly, obviously, thank you so much for joining me. There's so much to get through, but I think there is only one place to start, really, and that is with the manager, Erik ten Hag. Now, look, the performance at the weekend was really bad, if we're being totally honest. You know, it got a lot of Manchester United fans almost really getting to the stage where they've given up on the season despite still having a couple of things to fight for. But what can you tell us from your side of things in terms of Erik ten Hag? What's his future like, and will he even last the summer?
Well, the bad thing for the NAG is that now he's like the kind of a scholarship that every student is getting through, and it's a bit tough for him. And I know some good people close to this coach that are like, we don't really know what will happen at the end of the season, and they know that they are quite being monitored by the new owners of Man United, which is something good for one side, which is like, okay, I still have the chance to continue next year, but it's really bad for another side, because when he said on the press conference last weekend, I think, or maybe like a couple of weeks before, he was like, yeah, I know that there are some names on the table for the new Man United board, and this is something normal. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, this is something normal because this is football, and we are talking about Man United, which is one of the maybe top three clubs in the world, and and that is a bit, coping with that pressure is not easy for Ten Hag. And I don't know what will happen, to be honest, because I think no one knows what will happen in the summer window transfer with him. But when some people are monitoring or bringing out some names on the table of Man United, it's like something could happen in the near future. And I know the Ten Hag in these 2 3 years on Man United is not doing a bad job for me, but at the same time, it's like, is this what Man United need for the present and even for the future, which is even more important for Man United fans? That is why, I think that he's gonna struggle a little bit in this window transfer, because no one is really sure 100% about his job.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I think Manchester United in previous years have been guilty of not having contingency plans. And I know a lot of fans, certainly of Manchester United, aren't happy at the fact that there have been several names linked to the replacement of Erik ten Hag. But again, I think this is, as I was just saying there, it would be an irresponsible move if Manchester United weren't to have potential names in there. You know, we only have to look at when Jose Mourinho was sacked. You know, they brought in Solskjaer because they didn't have a plan. And when Solskjaer was sacked, they brought in Ranić because they didn't have a plan afterwards. So, names being linked, I don't think is a bad thing. I think Man United need to sort of operate in a different way, and that is also ultimately having these contingency plans, as I say. So when it comes to a potential new manager of Manchester United, of course, this doesn't really decide Erik ten Hag's future, but as I say, Ineos will have some names in mind. Have you heard of any names in particular? Julian Nagelsmann has been one, for instance. What can you tell us on that front?
I like Nagelsmann, for example, and I know the Man United have been monitoring him since I read that on the English press. But at the same time, it's like, when we're talking about Ten Hag's future on Man United, I compare it to Barcelona. You know what happened with Xavi Hernandez is like, okay, Xavi's gonna resign. No one is really sure he's going to resign 100% by the end of this season. And the thing is that Barcelona board are trying to convince Xavi in order to rethink about that decision. And I think that for me, since I told you, a couple of minutes ago that Ten Hag could struggle a little bit in the next summer with the transfer, I think on the other side is like, are the names that are coming out on the new feature of Man United really, Man United level names? Because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, for example, Tuchel. Is Tuchel going to be up for Man United, to be honest? After what he did on, the last part of his Chelsea era, or what he just did at Bayern Munich, is like, I mean, we're talking about Man United. And when we are talking about Man United, we're talking about one of the best clubs in the world, but also in the history of football. I mean, no one. I mean, you can't choose anyone for this bench. And I know that Ten Hag could be okay. I need a little bit more continuity in order to develop my skills on this bench. But at the same time, it's that you need to win as soon as possible, because fans are fed up with waiting for these titles, or waiting at least to compete, 1-on-1 to Man City or Liverpool or whoever club. So that is why, Tuchel could be one, but it's like, for me, it's not enough. I know the Serbian one also, that he's being linked with Man United, as I read before, but it's like, okay, this is something like a very Ten Hag level coach. So I don't really know what will happen, because I think even the new owner of Man United doesn't really know what will happen, because he doesn't have clear in mind. So let's see what will happen. But the thing is that Man United ownership must know that they have to win, and they have to give whoever 3 or even 4 years in order to say, okay, this is Man United. You got to develop your project, and you got to wait a little bit, since we're going to back you from the board. Let's see what happens. But it's a bit tough for any coach that is not Guardiola or Sir Alex Ferguson or whoever. No?
Yeah, if only they were the options that Man United were looking at, then I'd be a lot happier than I am. But look, no, it's a great point that you make there. The fact that whoever the manager will be, come the start of the next season, will have this time, will have the 3-4 year project, because that's ultimately what Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe want to provide for their new manager. So yeah, so that's a really interesting point, to be honest. And if it is Erik ten Hag, then I think that will give him a sigh of relief a little bit, won't it? That he knows that he's got a bit longer to stay, and he almost doesn't have to prove himself as he does from now until the end of the season. I just want to take your attention now to the player signings. As you say, it's all still so up in the air. We don't even know realistically, for definite anyway, who the Manchester United manager will even be next season or for the summer. But there have been a few reports. We'll begin with the left back position. Obviously Manchester United have been very, very sort of bare with options and any potential players to play in that position. We've had the likes of Luke Shaw, that's been injured for virtually all of the season, Thuram Malacia, who has been unavailable the whole of the season, and Man United have found themselves sort of, rotating between the likes of Amrabat and Victor Lindelof for that left back position, and neither of them want to play there, which I think really highlights, doesn't it, the fact that Man United not only want a left back, but they need a left back, at least one at the minimum. So in terms of any names or in that position in particular, what have you heard from your side?
Well, I don't really have any names for this side, but the thing is that what is 100% sure is that they're looking for someone young. In terms that they need someone young to be okay. We're gonna see how he copes with the pressure, with the Old Trafford and Man United pressure, and we want him to grow with the rest of the squad in 2-3 years. So that is why they don't really have big names now on the table, at least what I got, but they do are sure that they have to look for someone young in order to develop their skills in the midterm, which is something that for me is very intelligent. And I don't know if Omar Berrada, the guy that came from Man City, is one of the brains, in this new strategy. But I think is a really smart, a really intelligent strategy in order to say, okay, look what Real Madrid are doing now at the moment. I mean, they are signing people like Endrick in the past, like Rodrigo Faez, or like Vinicius, when they were no one in the world of football. I mean, they were a really potential great players, but they didn't know how they are, how they were going to be with Real Madrid. And I think that Man United, with the left back thing, they're doing the same. Okay, we're gonna bring someone really young in order to say, okay, we're not gonna take Luke Shaw out for this maybe 80-year-old guy, but at the same time, it's like you are gonna compete with him or with whoever, and you are gonna grow with the rest of the squad. 100% they are looking for someone young like that type of footballer. And let's see, but I think it's a really intelligent strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way that you just pronounced Omar Barada there was probably the best I've ever heard anyone say his name. So
Really?
yeah, I'll be. It's very
I
different to.
struggle a little bit with English, but at the same time with the Spanish, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
I think
perfect.
I can cope with it.
Yeah. It's very different to English people saying Omar Barada. It's very different to
Yeah.
the way you pronounce it. But I know we get sidetracked there. So obviously you were just saying there in terms of obviously that young profile. This is something that I've heard a lot from obviously journalists that have joined me on this very YouTube channel, mufcMPB, by the way. Everyone like, subscribe, all that stuff. Is that going to be the same sort of mindset and profile of player for the other players they want to sign in terms of Manchester United? So obviously, you know, the centre back position, you know, with several players, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later on, that they're going to be leaving the club. There will be an availability, if you like, for a defender to come in, central defender at Manchester United. So what kind of centre backs will they be looking for? Will they fit the same mold of someone who's young and, you know, who wants to blossom, rather than someone who's more experienced? Because, you know, with Man United, we've heard names like, you know, Burma from Juventus, for example, being linked. But I think he would be, if he did join Man United in the summer, I think he would be approaching 29. At the very minimum, he'd be 28. So that doesn't really fit into that younger profile. Or will this be a case of Man United will have a bit of a mixture?
What is sure is that Man United don't need another Rafa Varane. 100% sure. I mean, he used to be a great name, but you know, in terms of sporting performances, I mean, he's not for Man United level anymore, and even for Real Madrid, for Barcelona, for, you know, I would say even Atletico Madrid level. I mean, you don't need someone that has been everything in his career of football. And I think that you are going for someone like at least, you know, like 25 years old, center back, or maybe a bit lower, a little bit younger. I don't know if they're going to sign like in the left back, 18-year-old guy, because I think, I mean, we're talking about center back, and with what is happening to Lisandro Martinez now, the moment you need someone a bit older, a little bit more experienced for that position. So that is why, you know, I think it's going to be young, but it's not going to be, you know, like an 18-year-old guy, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's like you don't need to risk that position anymore. I mean, you risked it with Rafa Varane. I mean, I don't know if you are happy with him, but, you know, from the distance, it's like, I mean, you don't need a kind of player like Varane anymore. So he's gonna be a little bit younger, but, you know, a little bit of more quality than an 18-year-old guys, because if not, you're gonna suffer a lot during the season.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think Varane's on a list of several Manchester United players that are very likely to leave. You know, Saudi Arabia, of course, very interested. And another player that Saudi Arabia are interested is Casemiro. So now, obviously, you were just saying there about Varane, you know, a big name, but unfortunately, it hasn't quite worked out in the way that Man United fans would have wanted. Whereas Casemiro, I think, is a really interesting one, isn't he? Because last season, I would put an argument forward to say he was Man United's most influential and best player. He was so integral to everything that was good about Man United, and he was even popping up with big goals like he was doing in the League Cup final. He was just so instrumental. But now, this season, it just seems to have completely gone downhill for probably more than just one reason. I don't think it's just because of his age. I think there are other factors as well that do play into this. But with Casemiro, it is my understanding that, of course, Saudi Arabia are interested. And the way that Saudi Arabia are working, to my knowledge, is that they have a list of around 10 to 20 players that they really want to bring into the Saudi Pro League. And that list does include the likes of Casemiro, Mohamed Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, for example. And I believe, anyway, with Casemiro's situation, that everything is agreed in terms of like a fee, of potential wages, and now it will ultimately come down to the player. But from your side of things, what do you see and what do you think about Casemiro here? And where do you think it's gone wrong? And also, it leads me into my question, which of course Man United fans want to know about a replacement.
Well, first of all, you know, the most strange thing in the Casemiro case is that he's only 32 years old, and it looks like he's like 38 at least years old. It's like, whoa, man, he's only 32 years old.
Mhm.
I remember, you know, when Man United came to Madrid to sign Casemiro, I remember talking to one member of Real Madrid board, and he told me, please, I hope Man United to buy Casemiro as soon as possible, because they are crazy about the money. I mean, and I remember that guy from Real Madrid board saying that, and I was like, man, are you crazy? I mean, you just signed Chouameni, but, you know, Casemiro is still a starter for Real Madrid. Are you crazy? And he told me, I remember, you know, like it seemed yesterday, but he was like, they are gonna offer 70 million euros, and I was like, what? I mean, and I'm not gonna say that Casemiro by that time wasn't that worth, but at the same time, it's like, well, if for a guy that is, you know, turning almost 31 years old, you know, someone is offering that, I mean, sell him to Premier League. And I know that they were a bit risky by that time because they weren't really sure about what Tchouaméni performances were going to be like. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, they succeed in that term because they paid a lot of money for Tchouaméni, more than 85 million euros. But at the same time, the income for Casemiro was like 70 million euros approximately. And they were like, wow, man, this is crazy. And we hold the Man United cam again for any other Real Madrid player in order to pay this money to bring some incomes for us, no? And I remember, the first games of Casemiro, I was like, oh man, I think they failed. They failed because he's such a great player. He's, the character that he has on the pitch is just amazing. And the personality that he has, I mean, on Real Madrid, no one had it by that time. But for me, from the distance, he was like, okay, he started here, but suddenly he went down and down and down and down. And I don't really recognize him. And I don't know if he's not adapted to, English lifestyle or whatever. But at the end of the day, this year, this is something to forget about in terms of Casemiro. And that is why, if I were Man United, I agree with you that he should be sold to Saudi Arabian League. And I don't know, because for that position and for the Premier League and for Man United level, you need a big one. You need a great defensive midfielder, like a big one, in order to put the contrast or the balance in between defense and attacking lines. And I don't really, I don't know the names because in that position I don't have any information, but which is almost for sure, and I'm not gonna say 100% sure, is that Casemiro should leave as soon as possible because now he's not adding any plus content to Man United.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I just want to highlight something here as well quickly. I think there are a lot of journalists out there, there are a lot of reporters out there that work in the media who will try and say things, to act as if they've got loads of information on everything under the sun. But on mufcMPB, we don't want that. We want to get people who are completely honest, as you've just been there, Rodrigo, and as all of our guests have been. And that's all we can ask for. I think in a time where with social media, it's just almost a race, isn't it, to get the first scoop or to get the first bit of information. But this is what we do on mufcMPB. We bring in the perfect people for the proper stuff. And I think one big story that potentially may be, almost a social media story, if you like, one that certainly would be almost like a Netflix sort of storyline, if you like, is Marcus Rashford to PSG. Now, of course, Kylian Mbappe, he's on the verge of leaving. Although there are still some hopes from Paris Saint-Germain's camp that he could maybe change his mind. I'm sure Luis Enrique has just said that in the last week or so, that he still remains hopeful that maybe Mbappe will want to stay in Paris, but I don't think that's going to be how when he's being taken off after 60-65 minutes. I think we know what Kylian Mbappe's future is, and that will be in the all white, the famous
You
all
know,
white.
you know what, Anil? You should tell Radcliffe to knock on Mbappe's door. It would be amazing, believe me.
Well, honestly, if I could sign anyone in world football, I don't think it takes genius. It would be Kylian Mbappe. But now, of course, as we know, he will be moving on, or as much as we would like to think anyway, he's going to be moving to Real Madrid for an absolutely amazing blockbuster signing. That's right up there with when Cristiano Ronaldo joined Real Madrid all them years ago from Manchester United. But of course, at PSG, there will be a massive hole, there'll be a massive void and some big shoes to fill, which can be very attractive to probably every player across Europe to be the next Mbappe, or at least be the face of a club as big as PSG. And now, PSG haven't hesitated over the last couple of years to show their admiration for Marcus Rashford. Are they genuinely interested in a move for Marcus Rashford, or is this again, as I say, a bit of a Netflix story?
Well, to be honest, I think every big European club is interested in Marcus Rashford because when you talk about Rashford, to any big European club, all the people say to you the same. It's like he has everything. Everything. I mean, he has potential. He has power. He has, dribbling. He has, the shot that he has on the pitch is just amazing. And at the end of the day, he's only 26 years old, which is something like, oh my God, we're talking about Mbappe is almost from the same generation because Mbappe is going to turn next year 26 years old.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
everyone is talking about Mbappe. But at the same time, it's like, what if Rashford, had the lack of having a great coach together and that new coach could rebring again Marcus Rashford to the first spot of European football. I mean, what if that case? And that would be amazing, because indeed PSG are monitoring his situation. Indeed, some other big clubs are monitoring Marcus' situation, because I mean, he has everything, everything. And I know that, in the past, Barcelona, Real Madrid were really highly interested on him. But at the same time, they were like, okay, I mean, he belongs to Man United. He's never going to go out from Man United, because they are going to look after him. But at the end of these last 2-3 years, it's like, oh my God, he looks a bit stuck with these coaches that he have in the past. So that is why, if I were Radcliffe, I would like, okay, I'm going to bring everything in order to make Rashford even more important, because I think he has to be focused a little bit more, and he has to be feeling important at the end of the day, because he's important. And for me, he's maybe one of the three main Man United players. So that is why they need to look after him. They look to, to improve their skills, their performances, and he has to put that on the pitch to say, okay, you backed me, and I'm going to bring you back in order to repay everything. Let's see what happens. But indeed, PSG are looking for an Mbappe's replacement. I know that PSG now in their priority list, I think Rafael Leao from AC Milan is a little bit higher than Marcus Rashford, but it's like, okay, let's see what happens, because maybe at the end of the day, Rafael Leao is going to stay in Milan. I mean, he said it several times during this season. We don't know really if that is 100% true, or it's just a strategy in order not to fail with Milan supporters. But let's see, because if PSG don't sign Rafael Leao, I'm sure that they are going to get for Marcus Rashford if he wants to leave, because this is the important thing about the transfer market, because we are always talking about, well, maybe PSG or Real Madrid or Chelsea or Man City are going to sign this, but the final word belongs to the player. And if he wants to stay, he will stay. And if he wants to leave, he will leave. But, believe me that he's amazing. He is amazing. And the bad thing for us, as a football lovers, is that we haven't seen yet his top shape, which is something that could be great to see back on Old Trafford in the following seasons.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think, a lot of Manchester United fans have said to me over the last couple of years, because I'm not a fan of Bruno Fernandes. I won't get into it too much because we haven't got time. But in terms of comparing him to Rashford, the reason why I would want to keep Rashford over him is, as you say, I feel like we've seen Bruno Fernandes is very, high ceiling. He's played at his maximum, and I still think there's a couple of question marks over his game. Whereas, as you've just said there, with Rashford, I still don't believe, despite him scoring 30 goals last season and probably being Man United's best player, I still don't think that we have seen the best out of Marcus Rashford, which is, again, a really scary thing to think, isn't it? Because if he could reach them levels, then who knows what kind of player we could have on our hands. We've got just a couple of more questions just to get through. I really want to, sort of tap into your Spanish connections and, really get down to business with them kind of things. Dani Almo is a name that at the moment is going around with being linked with Manchester United for a potential move this summer. Have you got anything for us on that one?
He likes Manchester. He likes the city. He likes the English lifestyle. I think it will depend on, well, first of all, his actual club trying to sell him. We don't really know the big price that they are going to ask for. And I think it will depend on Barca and some other clubs linked to his future. But he has everything. And I think that he's more fit for Premier League game style rather than La Liga. And I know that he could adapt for La Liga indeed, because, I mean, he's a Spanish player. He knows how we play here. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, man, if he did what he's doing in Germany, imagine him playing for a Premier League club. And he likes England, and he's in love with Premier League kind of playing, because he understands that, with his shooting, with the way that he sees football, it's beautiful to see him as one of the main Man United targets for this next summer window transfer. I think it could be an interesting an interesting target, believe me. And I think that Man United here should be well positioned because there are some other big European clubs that are going to try to sign him. But at the same time, it's like he knows perfectly how football works. He knows that on Man United, he would be more important, even more important than in some other big clubs, big European clubs. So, that is why, if Man United finally says, okay, we're going for him, I think they are going to have big chances to sign him.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant answer. I think it's almost excited me a little bit. But as a Man United fan, I just don't like getting too excited because I always get let down in the
Yeah,
end. So I'm
sure.
gonna try and keep it on. I've just got one more question before I'll get your opinion on something. Of course, Mason Greenwood. As I always say on this podcast when I talk about him, we don't need to go into why he's not at Manchester United. I think everyone knows that. But if we completely look and focus on the footballing side of things, he's from our perspective over here in England, he's been doing very well at Getafe. He's been welcomed by the fans, and it's really allowed him a place to sort of focus solely on his football and to just get back to playing again. So, firstly, how is he being viewed in Spain? First and foremost, and secondly, as we know, there have been several Spanish clubs being at least linked with a potential interest in Mason Greenwood. So, do you think Spain is probably the most likely destination for Greenwood?
Let's see, because even for Greenwood, I asked this morning about his situation, and my sources at Getafe, they say, well, it's a bit soon still for knowing what he will do in the summer. But the thing is that they understand that, and they know, which is the great thing of all, that he's playing for Getafe just because of that non-football situation. Because if not, it would have been impossible for Getafe to to have a guy like Greenwood on the squad. Um, I think he's going to be in between England and Spain. To be honest, I don't know. Which club in England could sign him. I don't really know. Uh, right after what happened 2 years ago, but at the end of the day, he's doing well and he's proving that he's a high level player. I mean, I remember, I've been in the last month. I've been in two Getafe games, and everything is turning to him. In the attacking lines, when, for example, Luis Milla or some other Getafe midfielders, when they get the ball, immediately what they do is like, where's Mason? Where's Mason? Where's Mason? And the good thing of all is that when you talk to any Getafe player, you ask them about Greenwood. And the good thing for Greenwood is that he just landed very well on Getafe locker room. They are really aware that at least that is the Getafe locker room point of view. He's a great person. They laugh a lot. They have a great time with him. It looks like he just forgot completely, understand me, what happened in the past, and at the end of the day, he is enjoying football now at the moment here in Spain. And Getafe is not like the kind of team that they have pressure. They don't really have a great supporters number on the stands every 15 days, and he's like feeling well, which is the most important thing for him in order to make a jump to a higher level team in the next summer, which is something that he's going to do. The thing is that when you talk about Greenwood, to my Getafe sources, they say the same. I mean, he's so fucking expensive that it's impossible for Getafe to keep him one at least more seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be one again to keep an eye out for, isn't it? And before we obviously wrap things up, I just want to say a massive thank you, Rodrigo. You've been absolutely brilliant. I've just got one final question, and this isn't to try and get some source or information out of you or anything like that. I just want your opinion on things, and I think it's absolutely brilliant to talk to people like yourself who aren't based in England, who aren't right in the midst of week in, week out, day in, day out of the Manchester United news and stuff like that, and the politics more, should I say. So, but from an outside perspective, outside looking in, what do you see when you look at Manchester United, and why do you think it's gone wrong all of these years since Sir Alex Ferguson stepped down?
From my perspective, I think what Man United have been doing in the last years is a mix of misunderstanding Man United actual situation along the seasons, and secondly, like when you are in a hurry for something, in this case to win titles, you do stupid things. And this is something that happened in the past to Barcelona, to Chelsea, to Bayern Munich, even to Real Madrid. Before Florentino took over again the board. But at the end of the day, I understand what happened to Man United. But at the same time, it's like, well, I knew that this was going to happen, but maybe 2 or 3 years, not that much. It looks like in the last decade, since Man United was defeated by FC Barcelona in that Wembley UCL final, since that is like Man United has never been at the level that everyone expected Man United to be at. And this is something that really worried me a lot because, I've grown up with Man United winning every single tournament, not only in England, but in Europe. I mean, they were like the club to beat. And this is a pity at the same time because now it's like, okay, PSG, well, even Man City is like, well, man, this is not really real 100% because when the Saudi people leave the club, they will be down again. But Man United are going to be out there again. And that is why, if the new ownership, they do things properly, at the Man United level, I'm sure that Man United will be out there in the next year or maybe in 2 years as much. But they need, because all the Man United fans, not only in Manchester or in England, but in the rest of the world, they need and they deserve a better Man United because Man United is one of the top 3 biggest clubs in the world. And not now that they are still, but in football history. And they need to be out there and they deserve to be out there. And they need to work a little bit more in order to say, okay, we're going to be calm down. We're going to be trying to bring people with talented people like Omar Barrada and all these guys in the board, trying to get Man United big again, which is something that should be now as soon as possible in 2 years more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a perfect way to conclude things today. Rodrigo, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are, but it's always amazing to speak to people like yourself to, really get some great information, reliable information, and hopefully, anyway, it will resonate with the Manchester United fans as much as it has with me. So thank you so much, my friend.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Anil, to you and to all your big community. You do a great job, not only on YouTube, but also in Twitter and all your platforms. So it's been a pleasure for me. And the next time I will bring out some big names. I hope so.
Oh, fingers crossed anyway, and that's how we end things. Rodrigo Faez, thank you so much, my friend. And thank you to everyone who has listened to today's episode on the mufcMPB channel. Please be sure to like and subscribe. I almost should just record a video of me saying this because I have to say it every video. You've got to hit the like button. You've got to hit the comments. Do everything. Share it as much as you can because it really helps us guys get on people like Rodrigo to bring you people some brilliant information. So as I say again, like, subscribe, hit the follow for mufcMPB, and I'll catch you again when I will be joined by another brilliant guest.